Hey everyone, in this episode we're going to go over how to load a dump truck with a wheel loader. Check this out. Okay, we are using our Komatsu WA270 today to load. We got a quad axle dump truck. Special thanks to Holst Excavating letting us use this truck out here. We've been moving some material for one of our jobs at the sandbox, and there's another video we can link to about building out this parking lot with Carson Shifsky. But we thought we'd also, while we had the dump truck here, we get a lot of questions about loading dump trucks. So we thought we'd do a how to load a dump truck with a wheel loader. So first things first, we already checked. We had done the pre-inspection on the wheel loader, the dump truck. We know our site's safe here. We've gone over everything there. So with loading a dump truck, I mean, first and foremost, safety is key. And part of that, understanding the dump truck that's out there, what size, what capacity. You know, a lot of that is knowing how much weight you're going to put into that dump truck. A lot of that is based on road restrictions. So we're in the north, Minnesota here, but they have certain times of the year where they'll have road restrictions on what you can or cannot put into, how much weight you can haul in those. So that's partly you need to work with the who's ever hauling, how much material you can put in there. So with that said, I'm going to get going here and just take a couple of scoops, kind of show you again. We have a how to operate a wheel loader. I'm not going to go over all the controls. If you want to learn how to operate a wheel loader from the start, check out one of those videos we'll link and can teach you more. So I'm going to go get this going. So a couple of things, and I got my pile here in front. We're loading, it's a crushed concrete asphalt kind of gravel mix that we're loading here. So biggest thing is kind of understanding your blade angle. You know, you want to start near low to the ground, and you want to have that bucket relatively level to the ground. So we use it on the top. You can see on the top, you can see lines. But as a new operator, you want to understand that. So there's also a way I'm going to show you at the end is after you dump, it'll return to dig. It'll do that for you. But you come down, you want to be scraping, you want to be right along the ground here, and then you're just driving right into that pile. Now the biggest thing, you want to try and get a full bucket here. Now a couple things. First of all, to get a really full scoop, first and foremost, you don't want to be spinning your tires at all. So we have a traction control on this, but it'll still spin a little bit. It wears down your tires. It's not going to make whoever owns that wheel loader real happy. Plus it creates a lot of ruts and everything like that. As you're going in from there, once you start going in, you want to start pulling back on that boom arm. So it's a little bit start raising it. A couple reasons we do this. One, that's putting traction onto your fronts, putting weight on your front axle. So it's giving you a little bit more downward pressure so you can drive into this. But as I'm going in, you go in, you're starting to lift, you curl. I'm giving a throttle at the same time, pulling back, curling. It's kind of a combination of both. So you're trying to get a nice, large, full scoop here. And then I've got that fully loaded right there. Now, as I'm backing up, now this one, you know, they're obviously guys with their dump trucks, you want to try and keep them somewhat clean. So the more, as much as a wheel loader operator wants to get that bucket as full as possible, you also want to be careful. If you got it spilling all over the sides, even right here, I've kind of got it, sometimes shaking it out a little bit, evening it out before you pull away from that pile. That way you're not going to risk dumping it outside the dump truck. So as I'm coming back, looking where I'm backing up to. Now, before I go forward here, one of the big things for loading a dump truck, you know, the best, and this you'll work with your dump truck driver on where you want it to park. Strongly recommend a V pattern. And what I mean by that is if it looks kind of like a V pattern where the wheel loader backs up, pulls forward, and it's all about cycle time, how quickly you can do it. So if I were to have to back up and this dump truck was behind me or whatnot, it's very inefficient. It slows you down. So generally you're going to get as close to that pile, and if you can make the V where I go into the pile, back up, turn, dump right in there. That's really, really key, and the best way to be the most efficient with that. The other thing from safety, you want to keep an eye on where your dump truck driver is. Our machine, I actually put that dump truck there. I don't have a driver in it. But obviously if you're on a site for safety, you know, ideally the dump truck driver is normally going to be right in the driver's seat there. So you just want to know where they are. If you can't see somebody, always recommend slowing down and just understand where they're at if they're outside of that machine. Now with this one, it's large enough that again, this is a quad axle, so it's a larger frame. So you kind of want to spread them out evenly. So I'm going to start kind of the back. The axles are in the back here. So the key is driving forward Now for the first couple, you don't want to be all the way up and dump this. That's about 20, probably about 5,000 pounds of load in that. So if you dump that from a height, really, that's not going to be great on that dump truck. So generally you want to be a little bit low, and you're trying to curl those first couple right into the back of that. As I'm driving forward, you're moving a little bit. You want to be able to spread that out. After I dump it, I'm done there. I can do return to dig on this. So again, on the Komatsu, if I just hold left like that, you're going to see it goes back and it stops at level. Then I can bring it back, looking where I'm going, and then all I have to do is push straight forward here. Again, speed and efficiency here is trying to be as close with as minimal, the cycle times you want really, really low. Bringing it down to the ground, and as I'm going forward here, pulling into it, pulling back. Again, trying to avoid spinning any tires, anything like that. And then going back. A lot of times too, if you're really close, again, for cycle time, is you start raising that up as you're going backwards. This is gonna save you so you're ready. Just understanding the higher you get that bucket, the less stable your machine is. So you wanna be careful when you're having this thing up above your cab. Going up. This one, that first one I loaded towards the back, so this one I'm gonna load, I'm looking at my right side, I'm gonna load it towards the front a little bit. Again, I start dumping it kind of at the edge there, and I'm going to keep driving forward a little bit. You're trying to spread that out a little bit so it's even in there. I'm pulling back as I'm dumping it. Now the other thing you're also trying to keep track of here for cycle counts are really how much you're putting in that truck. So that was my second load. It can get tough. I mean, eventually if you're loading the same dump truck, I think an experienced operator knows when they see what level it's at. They know when it's full. Part of it is, so I know that truck, I'm trying to get about 20 tons of material. Again, it's a quad axle. We're loading it a little bit heavier today because we don't have the road restrictions. We were actually just moving this gravel, less than a mile. So really, really close to the site. Now I have a 3-yard bucket. So sometimes it takes a little bit of math. So a 3-yard bucket on here, each yard, I would say a yard of gravel, this concrete mix is about 2,600 pounds. So you start figuring out how much, so times 3 of those, because it's 3 yards of it. Roughly, I've got a little over 3 to 4, about 3 tons. Sorry, about closer to 4 tons when you do that. So what I'm trying to do, knowing that if each of my buckets is roughly 4 tons, then I'm understanding that it's going to take about 5 loads to get this to the capacity to make it basically legal for the road restrictions. Okay, so this will be my last load. Now generally I recommend loading the last, or at least you want to, if you're gonna fill it heavier in one spot, especially on one that's wider than your bucket, usually you want to be over the axles. Again, this is a quad axle, but we're not lowering the 2 extra axles. So there's 2 reasons. You want to load it in the back to be over, or at least centered over those rear axles. The other piece is when they're dumping, when you raise that dump bed, there's always a risk of basically a dump truck getting off balance and tipping over. So the higher, understand that the front of that is going to be the one that has the most. If you have too much weight up there and it were to get stuck in there, that could run a risk. So generally, if the lower you can put it here, it's going to make them a little bit more stable, less risk of tipping. Now after I dumped this last one, and again, we went a little bit, this is just a hair over. This is where you can try and flatten it out a little bit. It really depends if they're putting a cover on this at all. But you can pack it down a little bit and at least just spread it out a little bit. After that, if there were someone in there, you'd give them clearance and they would pull away. Awesome. Thanks for watching this episode. Again, I think I may have said at the beginning, I am not an expert at this, just kind of showing you what I've learned. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have comments or if you do this regularly for a job, we would absolutely love you to put the comments below. And please make sure you subscribe to our channel, like the video. I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Have a good one.